Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Alabama, once again, national champions of the BCS. We'll break down the Crimson Tide's win over Notre Dame. We'll look at high school basketball, round up some of the Tuesday games, and we'll look at the NFL playoffs and discuss Robert Griffin III's injury before we break down SEC basketball.
Live from the River Valley Leader Studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
Sports Blitz Wednesday, Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton in the studios of the rivervalleyleader.com. Thank you for joining us today. Go to facebook.com/sportsblitz and weigh in on our poll question today. Who will be the SEC Basketball Player of the Year? We talked about this before the show for just a moment, and we've got it down to about 3 names that we think you will most likely choose. You can choose whoever you'd like. If you think B.J. Young's going to come out of nowhere and be the SEC Player of the Year, it wouldn't necessarily be nowhere because he's a top echelon name.
He's up there.
But we've got it down to a couple people. We haven't listed those names because we want you to feel free to list whoever you'd like. We looked at Flip Pressey from Missouri, Murphy from Florida, and Goodwin, Little Rock's own Archie Goodwin from Kentucky as the front runners for SEC Player of the Year. Let us know what you think about SEC basketball as the Hogs open up their SEC slate tonight on the road at Texas A&M.
Yeah, Arkansas step one towards an SEC title, hopefully in the regular season. And you look at this game, Mark, and I've said it over and over. Arkansas, they have got to win road games against bad teams. And I'm sorry, Texas A&M, they're not a very good team. If you're Arkansas, you're going to struggle at Missouri. You're going to struggle on the road against some of these other good teams. You may even lose at home against good teams. But you have got to at least take care of business when you face inferior opponents on top of stealing some resume-boosting wins against the Missouri, Kentucky, and Floridas of the world.
If they're able to do that, it looks like Arkansas is going to be in good shape. I predicted on Monday 10 wins in the SEC for Arkansas. It's a 10-8 record now that Arkansas and the SEC are playing an 18-game conference schedule. You can look at Corey Williams' blog that he posted on rivervalleyleader.com. Did a good job breaking down and previewing the SEC basketball schedule. He says Florida's going to win the SEC, Missouri, and who else is right below them? I have to look to make sure, but he did a good job of breaking that down, and he posted a blog. It's obviously his opinion on where he thinks people are going to land in the SEC. Puts Arkansas in that second level of teams that are contenders. He had Florida, Missouri, and Kentucky, and then those fighting for an SEC or for an NCAA tournament bid: the Arkansas Razorbacks, Ole Miss Rebels, and Tennessee Volunteers. There'll be much more on that today, but Weldon, just seeing Arkansas in the fighting for a bid, it's I don't want to say it's good to see because
we ain't seen
that's
it in
what
a
we
while.
expect, but
that's
you're right.
Really what it is. We hadn't seen it in a while, Mark, and this is an Arkansas basketball team that they are just getting closer and closer. I feel that they have all of the ingredients in place. They have the depth. They have the athleticism. They've been around Mike Anderson long enough to where they can make a move. They have to continue to make better decisions offensively, play smarter basketball. I watched the opener last night with Alabama and Missouri. Was not impressed. Alabama offensively is a joke. I mean, they literally have nobody outside of Trevor Relaford who can put the ball in the hole. And Relaford's supposed to be the point guard. His distribution skills are lacking. An Alabama team struggles. They gave Missouri a hard time, supposed to be the class of the SEC. It's there for Arkansas. They just have to seize it.
Kentucky, as always, a young team. Florida may be the class of the conference. In the way Corey broke it down, it seems to me that it makes the most sense to say that Florida could be head and shoulders above everybody else. They've got the depth. They've got the upperclassmen. They've got guys that have been there and done that before. They've got a big home floor advantage there at the O'Connell Center. So Florida, to me, looks to be the class of the SEC. But Arkansas, like you said, has a shot to get in there and make some noise But before we get to that, which we will obviously get to later on in the show, the biggest game of the college football season took place Monday night. The Alabama Crimson Tide go in and just destroy Notre Dame. It was 35-0, seemed like, before anybody knew what was going on. Was it 28-0 at the half?
It was ugly.
Was that the halftime
score?
I think it was.
Yeah, that was the halftime
It was just
score.
an absolute massacre. And, we said on Monday that we expected Alabama to win. And if Notre Dame won, it would have been an upset. I don't know that either one of us expected this kind of beatdown from Alabama.
No, absolutely not. I'll be the first to say I didn't see Alabama winning at that degree. I picked Notre Dame to win the game. And for me, it's simple. The Alabama you saw the other night was the 2013 Alabama Crimson Tide. There is no way you can tell me that team that gave up about 400 yards a game down the stretch, a team that got pushed by Georgia, is the same team that we saw the other night against Notre Dame. I understand that Notre Dame is not an SEC caliber team, but at the same time, Alabama used bowl preparation to project themselves and propel themselves to the next season, which is what you should do. I looked at a young, athletic, talented Florida team, thought they would use the long layoff to propel themselves to 2013, given that they had a lot of guys returning. They did not do that. Alabama did. And we can talk all this talk about Nick Saban and how he gets ready for the opponent, how he studies you. I think he does a great job of that, Mark, but more than anything, he does a great job of getting his own team ready. Worry about us. What do we need to do to get better? What do we need to do to execute? Nick's the kind of guy that feels that if his team can do exactly what they're supposed to do, then that's going to give them a leg up when preparing for the opponent. Alabama was ready to play.
I think Nick Saban does something that, like you said, all great coaches do, and something that the coaches that I've been around that are very good do that's different than what I would do. I would be one of those that would be so detail-oriented on what do they do, because I know what we do. Right. What do they do that we can either exploit or that we have to be taking advantage, that we have to be able to account for. And then I would probably spend too much time worrying about that junk. Instead, Nick Saban says, all right, we're going to prepare you to be the best. If you do what we've coached you to do, nobody's going to beat you. He doesn't tell them that, obviously. Right. He just knows that we're going to prepare them, and when we get prepared and we do things the right way, nobody's going to be able to beat us. Alabama throws for 264 yards, rushes for 265 yards. You can't be more balanced than that. You can't. Literally, you could not have played a better first half than Alabama did. Eddie Lacy, 140 rushing yards. T.J. Yeldon, 108 rushing yards. A.J. McCarron, 4 touchdown passes, 264 yards passing. And so you had quarterback throw for 264 and 4 touchdowns. You had 2 running backs over 100 yards. You had a receiver over 100 yards. You held the other team to 32 rushing yards. Well, Weldon, my old, and you can check out my blog at rivervalleyleader.com, where I said my new rule, it's a hard and fast rule that I've come up with after last year. Until somebody beats Nick Saban and keeps Alabama from making the national championship game, I'm never going to pick against them. Alabama looks to be the class of the 2013 season as well.
They do, Mark, and I think you bring up a great point. It's very hard to go against and pick against a Nick Saban team when they have that long to prepare for a game. We've seen that, almost like a Chris Peterson thing times 5 in terms of preparing long term. The only thing that stops it is Alabama getting there. Will they trip up? Will they have a stumbling block along the way that will prevent them from getting in the game? Because we've seen, they had to have some help. As great as they looked against Alabama, they had to have some teams lose just to get in this game. It kind of reminds me of the time off in 2010 when Cam Newton brought Auburn back to beat Alabama. Alabama, they go into the offseason, or at least the bowl dead period, mad as a hornet. Nick gets them ready. They absolutely embarrassed Michigan State in that bowl game. I have no doubt in my mind that if Alabama had that much time to prepare, Cam Newton or not, they would have beat Auburn mercilessly. I know people may not see that, but I do. That Alabama at the end of the 2010 season, they were the best team in the country. Even with 3 losses, they just were. And I think when you look at this Alabama team, if they get there, as you alluded to, Mark, they are very, very difficult to deal with, especially when they're motivated. Now, I know Alabama and SEC haters, what they'll do is they'll go back to that Sugar Bowl back in, I think, 2008. I'm sorry, they lost to Tim Tebow in the SEC title game. Devastated. The motivation factor wasn't there. You can blame Saban, blame who you want. They didn't want to be there. It was clear, and Utah beat them. But when they're motivated,
yeah, they're tough to beat. And we've asked today on the blog, rivervalleyleader.com, it's the All in the Game blog, who can beat Alabama? It's a way too early look at 2013, and I just listed 10 teams that I don't necessarily think all these teams have really a shot, but these are the 10 teams that I thought had the best shots of beating Alabama in descending, or I guess ascending order, from Clemson through Texas A&M.
Right.
You can't say which teams have a chance to beat Alabama without mentioning the team that did. And then, I had Georgia at number 2. Georgia was 5 yards away from beating them this year in the SEC championship game. So, if, like you said, the best point that I've heard about this is that if you get to the championship game, it's going to be very tough, like you said, to beat Alabama. But keeping them from that championship game is the best way to ensure that you just don't get murdered. Because
right.
You give Nick Saban 30 days to prepare for you, and it's just pretty much all over from there. And from all indications we've heard, Nick Saban's going to be in college football for a long time. He's not going pro. He says he's found his place, and he is at peace in college football, which is bad news for everybody else.
Yeah, he kind of alluded to that last week, and I guess it was kind of locked it up after that championship game, Mark. And just look at a team like Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M, to me, this year they were outstanding. I'll be the first to say they were a lot better than I thought they would be. Even without Johnny Manziel, just the talent that they had on that roster was better than I thought it would be. And they're going to lose Luke Jokel, their big superstar tackle, and maybe some other guys. If they could have brought back those guys, A&M would be nothing to mess with too. Plenty of people out there making the case that down the stretch they were the best team in the country. Obviously, we'll never know that for sure because of slip-ups against Florida and LSU. But it invites, when you're in the SEC and you have to play week after week, the attrition that you have to deal with, it just gives room for teams like an Oregon, teams outside of the SEC that may play an easier schedule to get in and keep an Alabama out. Now, those teams have slipped up in recent years, which has allowed an SEC team to get in the game. But you just wonder and you fear, if you're an SEC fan, that one of our teams are going to have one, maybe 2 losses, some Pac-12 Big Ten team's going to go undefeated, and we're going to get left out. I think that's the only scenario that would leave an Alabama out.
That seems to be the only way that you're going to leave an SEC team out, and they better do it this next year, because when it comes playoff time 2 years from now, you're going to have 1, possibly 2 SEC teams in the national championship discussion. And I wrote a blog post the other day about how the bowl system is broken, and that's kind of old news. But I wrote about how the playoffs can't get here soon enough. And I wrote how it's going to eventually expand from 4 teams, just like the NCAA basketball tournament expanded past 16 teams to 64, and now 69 teams or whatever it is, and it's going to end up at 96 or 115 or whatever they were talking about doing. Eventually, expansion to an extent will do better.
How much are you talking here?
I wouldn't go past 16 teams, but 8 teams I think would be a good number. 4 teams, to me, it's the +1 system, I understand, but I think that there are sometimes teams outside of the top 4 who have an argument. Texas A&M, would they have been in the top 4?
2 losses, though. They
beat Alabama.
What happened to you second half against Florida? What happened to you against LSU second half?
I'm just saying, if they were in the top 8 and they had a chance to play against all these other teams and they'd already beaten Alabama, they're dangerous.
But to me, though, if you're outside the top 4, either you lost some games or your resume is flawed. That's the thing to me. I feel like even if you lose 1 game, you're at the mercy of the system. Alabama got the benefit of it. Kansas State and Oregon, they didn't. To me, I feel like if you want to compete for a championship so we can preserve the regular season, I like keeping it exclusive. I love 4. I think 4 keeps the Boise States, who are undefeated, keeps them in play. But you don't have a chance to mess around and lose a game and say, it doesn't matter. Just think of that electricity with LSU and Alabama. I just don't think you get that with a big playoff. 8 teams, LSU lost. We'll get a chance at them. That juice, man, I got to tell you, I love that regular season juice.
No, I mean, I understand where you're at there, but to me, I think the SEC was the team or the conference that would benefit most from having an 18 playoff. You got a crappy Pac-12 or Big 10 or Big 12 or whatever, and one of these teams has 2 or 3 losses. They may get in, but those big SEC teams that have 1 or 2 losses, who have probably lost to 2 of the top 10 teams in the country, and now have a chance to get into the playoffs and say, you know what, you teams that are 1 loss and no loss, Big 10, Pac-12 teams, well, we'll show you how it is when we're the 8 seed, you're the 1 seed, and we're the SEC team. We're Texas A&M coming out of the SEC having this tough schedule, and we get a chance at you. I think it would help the SEC if an 18 playoff, maybe not 16, because like you said, there aren't that many teams that can actually win the national championship.
But even if they could, let's say, I don't know, an 8-4 ACC team got in, they played a number 1 SEC team, they probably wouldn't beat them. But if they did, I'd be like, okay, you won the game, but I feel cheated. I mean, I went undefeated in the regular season. You screwed around for 2 or 3 games, and yeah, you beat me. But what I did week after week, and you get a 1-game scenario, let's
just look at who would be in the 18 playoff right
who'd
now.
Be in it this year?
If it were just to be by the rankings this year, Alabama would take on South Carolina in the first round. That's a big game because 2 years ago South Carolina beat Alabama. Oregon would take on Stanford in the first round. That's a conference matchup as well. Ohio State, if they were eligible, would take on Texas A&M, and then Notre Dame, Georgia in the first round. I mean, those are some compelling matchups. I wouldn't want to see all the conference matchups. I may switch stuff like that. But
to me, though, it's not about if it's a good matchup. You're right. There are going to be some good matchups. I want you worthy. When I look at you, if you want to be in my playoff, I want to see you're a championship caliber team. You have a championship caliber resume. I feel like if you're the 5th team, 6th team, sure you can beat some of those teams, but there's something wrong with your resume. Either you didn't play anybody or you lost. You just have a flaw with me.
Well, the only team that doesn't have a flaw after Notre Dame got beat by Alabama is Ohio State, and they didn't play anybody. So, I mean, everybody this year really has a flaw. Everybody, or a loss, in other words. Oregon, Alabama,
right.
Georgia, Texas A&M, Stanford, South Carolina. Everybody has 2 losses except for Alabama and Oregon, and now Notre Dame. And Ohio State, I don't think they really count.
And to me, when you lose, I think you have to just sit back and watch what happens. I think you have a chance week in and week out to control what happens to you. And once you lose 1 game, you may or may not benefit from it. I just think you have a chance to take care of your business from day one. And when you don't, voters, computers, all of that, you let it factor in.
What do you think about the playoffs? Let us know what you think about a college football playoff. Should it just stay at 4 teams? Is that what you're all right with, the +1? Or are you with me and you think 18 playoff would fit pretty well, and eventually they're going to expand. The more I think about it, 16. Well, I've thought a lot about this, and the 16-team playoff to me reminds me a lot of the 64-team NCAA basketball tournament. You've never seen a 16-seed win, but man, you've seen some 15 seeds win, and that's pretty fun.
It's just a different nature, though.
It is because the physical nature of football. That some of these teams are going to get just jacked up. Because you would see Utah State playing Alabama in the 1 versus 16 game there if that were to happen. So, that would be pretty nasty. Let's look real quickly at local sports. We hadn't had a whole lot to talk about in local sports, so we kind of went with the big story of the day, the national championship game. Last night, Russellville lost to Northside, Fort Smith Northside, pretty good squad. The Cyclones fell. The Clarksville Panthers just trashed Greenbrier, 73-47, 18 points from Dedrick Lee, 15 from Jaron Thompson, and 13 from Devin Sims. Each one of those had a nice dunk of their own. It was just a run and gun, get your starters out midway through the third quarter. You had substitutes playing in the first quarter. It was that type of game for the Panthers. They got a big win over the Greenbrier Panthers. I tweeted last night that the Red Panthers beat the Blue Panthers because Greenbrier wears blue. And then Pottsville beat Dardanelle by 20 last night, so the Apaches moved to 5-0 in the 4A4, and the Sand Lizards fall in a tough one there.
What's going on? I mean, we like Pottsville. We also like Dardanelle, too. What's going on with the Sand Lizards?
Pottsville's good. That's the thing. They're
He's
going
more
to be a
Pottsville
class
than
up.
Dardanelle.
Yeah. Well, Dardanelle, I mean, they lost by 20, but if you look at the game, I was looking at the score. It was 8 points here, 4 points there.
Mm-hmm.
They barely lost each quarter, and it just added into a 20-point game. So it was one of those type things. Dardanelle, they're rebuilding, they're reloading, and they'll be back in the next couple of years. Arkansas Tech, a couple bits of news here. Win Norwood, a 3-time All-Arkansas Intercollegiate Conference selection in the 60s from Arkansas Tech, was named to the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame Sunday, so that's a huge honor for Arkansas Tech and Win Norwood. Also, Will Paul was named the GAC Men's Basketball Player of the Week, and Jessica Weatherford, after averaging 25 points and 9.5 rebounds, was named GAC Women's Basketball Player of the Week. And the Wonder Boys and Golden Suns traveled to OBU on Thursday to play a little basketball. So you've got some Arkansas Tech news. If you want it, go to athletics.atu.edu, and you'll be glad you did. We're going to go to break. When we come back, plenty of other stuff. Robert Griffin III, was he more injured than we were led to believe in that playoff game?
Set your sights on savings right now at Honda of Russellville. We're offering our best deals of the year on remaining 2012 Honda ATVs, plus special introductory offers on select new 2013 Honda ATVs, all with zero down and easy monthly payments with approved credit. Be sure to check out the all-new Honda Foreman 4x4, now stronger, smarter, and harder working. How about a side-by-side? Well, Honda's got you covered with the Big Red. Honda's Big Red offers a proven Honda engine, automotive-style Honda automatic transmission with no belts to slip or break. Come in for a test ride today at Arkansas's legendary Honda dealer, Honda of Russellville.
Hello, River Valley. This is Doug Duval with Arkansas's first Rack Furniture Warehouse, where we have the largest selection of recliners and mattresses in the state of Arkansas. Come visit us at 2609 East Parkway, the Rack Furniture Warehouse.
AR Sports present the 2012 River Valley Football Magazine, featuring profiles of local high school football teams, as well as college football previews and player spotlights. Professional photography accompanies top-notch writing throughout to bring you the best locally focused publication in Arkansas. You'll enjoy special tributes to local legends Jerry Aiken and Don Sevier, as well as an exclusive interview with Razorback all-time great Clint Sterner in this year's magazine. Available at fine establishments throughout the River Valley. Pick up your copy of River Valley Football Magazine today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Live from the River Valley Leader Studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
You can tell it's a good subject when you talk about it during the break. We're talking about the playoff stuff. I'm gonna write down who'd play who, and let's just look at the matchups. This is one thing I've done before that it turned it into a pretty big debate. But long story short, eventually, I don't even know if it's a question. I think it's pretty much a definite it's going to happen that you're going to see the playoffs expand at some point, just because there'll be more people who can get.
5 years? Or?
No, it'd be longer than that.
It's going to be a while. Yeah.
Just because more money will be available, more chances for different conferences to get their hand in it, and they're going to keep up. We're talking about college football, by the way. They're going to keep up with the bowls and all this, pageantry around these different bowl games and the traditions and whatnot. I did find it interesting that the national championship game looks like it's going to be in Jerry World, the Cotton Bowl, here in a couple of years. But that's just because Jerry has more money than he needs, and
he wanted to
just
get in
bid
there.
the heck out of it. Yeah. So we'll that'll be a discussion for another day. Maybe I'll write a blog about that. We'll see. That may be my Friday or Thursday blog. Stay tuned for that. We've asked today, who's going to be the SEC Basketball Player of the Year? Got a couple answers so far. Jason Kilburn and Corey Williams both say Flip Pressey, Phil Pressey from Missouri. I think we both agreed before the break that he was probably going to be the guy as well, just because he'd have the numbers on one of the better teams, an up-tempo team like Missouri. They're going to put up some good numbers.
Yeah, now the thing is, we don't expect it, but what if Missouri were to tank? And by tank for them would be finishing more in the middle than at the top. I believe they'll finish at the top, but again, I watched that team. I see flaws. Alabama on your home floor. I know Alabama defensively is a good team, but still, watch them against UCLA. Yes, UCLA is getting better. It wouldn't surprise me if Missouri stumped their toe more times than what people think. And I think Pressey would still be the guy. It's just you open up room for guys like Archie Goodwin, as you mentioned, and people like that. So I would go with Pressey, but given Frank Haith and that team, and I think do I have to say more?
Yeah, he's not our favorite coach in the college basketball right now. Hey, we're glad for the change they've had to make, because it meant that Arkansas got a guy in Mike Anderson who everybody around this area had positive thoughts about. Let's move on real quickly. Let's look at the NFL. We've got the divisional matchup set. You've got Peyton Manning taking on the Baltimore Ravens. That one's going to be fun. Just a couple weeks ago, they actually put a hurting on Baltimore without Ray Lewis, without some of the defensive talent that the Baltimore Ravens have. This could be Ray Lewis's last game, and it also could be just a terrible, terrible game for Peyton Manning. If he's to lose this game, it's going to hurt his legacy in a big way, because, look what you did in the regular season, then it comes crashing down in the playoffs, like a lot of people have said about Peyton Manning in the past. What is he, 9-10 in his career in the playoffs? He needs a nice little run here as the 1 seed out of the AFC. That one's going to be fun, Saturday at 3:30.
And I just don't see how Baltimore pulls it off. I mean, you look at what's given Peyton Manning in the past, certainly 34 defenses have. Baltimore has that capability. But I think it's on the other side of the ball. Joe Flacco, I don't think can get it done. I know he got to the AFC title game, but I think against a Denver Broncos defense, it has a chance to put pressure on with just 4. Of course, Von Miller coming off that edge. I think Joe Flacco is going to struggle. He does have 5 playoff wins or 5 wins in his first 5 years. Great job for him. He didn't light it up in all of those games, I'm here to tell you. He didn't light it up against the Indianapolis Colts at home. I think that he's going to go to Denver, and I think he's going to struggle. Peyton Manning and company, I believe, Mark, will get the job done. The Ray Lewis and company, just from a cerebral standpoint, will give Peyton Manning some things to think about, but ultimately the sheriff gets it done, and I believe he'll have a meeting with his old buddy Tom Brady in the AFC title.
Man, I can't wait. Well, I picked Houston in the AFC to make it to the Super Bowl, so I have to go with Houston over New England there. Now, if that's the case and Houston wins, I'll be rooting for Denver because Peyton Manning is my favorite player in the league. Where do you think Peyton Manning is percentage-wise? Do you think he's close to 100%?
I think he's close. I think what his cerebral capabilities have allowed him to do is mask maybe some physical deficiencies he had. You look at that Atlanta game, clearly I just think he was far away from being 100%, some of those interceptions he threw against the Falcons. But I think physically he's fine. The bigger challenge has been about getting in sync with these receivers, coaching receivers. I think Peyton Manning's the greatest wide receivers coach in the history of the game. I mean, we can talk about quarterback play, what he does coaching quarterbacks, and I think he's a decent quarterback coach. I think he's a receivers coach through and through. I mean, look what he did with Blair White and all those guys back in Indianapolis, and you have him now in Denver. He finally has a group of receivers that have physical talent. Eric Decker, he's not great, but he's a bigger receiver. He's got some talent. Demaryius Thomas has a chance to be as good as he wants to be from an athletic standpoint. Peyton Manning has coached him. They're both playing at a high level. Now that he's in sync with his receivers, it makes his Denver offense go to another level. Can they run the football? If you stop Denver from running the ball, that's where they would have trouble. But if not, they're going to roll.
I'm excited to see – well, I'm ready to see 2 of these games, and I'm excited to see 2 more. The Denver-Baltimore game, I'm ready to see it. The Seattle-Atlanta game, I'm ready to see it. But I'm excited about Green Bay, San Francisco, Houston, New England. Those games interest me. in a number of different ways. Saturday at 7 o'clock, Green Bay, San Francisco. This is just a clash of wills, a clash of two teams that, we've talked a lot about teams this year who, they both do the exact same thing. Who's gonna have their way? Well, in this game, Green Bay wants to sling it around. San Francisco wants to smash mouth. Who's going to have their way? It's going to be a very interesting game from my perspective because I picked Green Bay to win the Super Bowl, and if they can't get past San Francisco, obviously they don't have a chance to do that. And if they do get past San Francisco, I don't know that they'll see another defense like them.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm looking forward to this game, and really, it's about what San Francisco team shows up. They've had a week off. They're rested. I definitely think they'll be better than what you saw against the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, they won their final game anyway. But I think the last taste we have of the 49ers on a national scale is what happened in Seattle. And I remember, this team had to fly 3,000 miles to go at New England and win in convincing fashion, even though the Patriots came back. They dominated them if you watch the whole game. Then you have to fly back home 3,000 miles, go up to the most hostile environment in the league against a good team in Seattle. I think San Francisco's batteries will be recharged, and I think they'll play a good game. To me, this is all about the 49ers. As much as I love Aaron Rodgers, the 49ers at their best, to me, are better than even a hot Aaron Rodgers at his best. It's about what San Francisco team shows up. If they show up ready to play like they did early in the year, I think they move on to the NFC title.
Green Bay's got to grow a defense this week. San Francisco, they'll run the ball. Yeah, they'll run the ball effectively. Colin Kaepernick will get out of the pocket and cause some trouble there. Possibly throw the ball a little bit. He's been a little different than Alex Smith. But if Aaron Rodgers isn't hot, I don't know that Green Bay's got a shot in this game.
If he's not hot, Lord,
San Francisco they're a pretty balanced team. They've got a really good defense, and that running game is tough. So I'll be rooting for Green Bay just to keep my Super Bowl pick alive. But if I had to pick the game, I'd probably pick San Francisco.
Yeah, and the weather. San Francisco, that fog, the Bay. Remember how it was against the Giants last year? It was a quagmire out there. I don't know what it'll be like this weekend, but obviously Green Bay wants as good a footing as possible given how they play.
Definitely. Sunday at noon, Seattle, Atlanta.
I like this game.
I'm ready to see. It's not my kind of game. It is a clash of wills. It's an offensive team versus a defensive team in Seattle. But Seattle bounced back from a 14-0 deficit against the Washington Redskins to get a 24-14 win last week. Atlanta's rested up and waiting, and now the Falcons' high-flying offense comes home and takes on Seattle, who going to be without some guys, but they've still got Marshawn Lynch. They've still got probably one of the rookies, best rookies of the year. If you could give it to three guys, you might.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson at quarterback. I like Atlanta in this game, but I would not be surprised at all if Seattle won this game.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle won. But if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you got to take a deep breath and say, okay, this is it. Year after year, we have been tormented about our lack of success in the playoffs. People have questioned our toughness. People have questioned our character. Can we win when it counts? People know we can win in the regular season, but they know we haven't done anything in the playoffs. We're tired of hearing it. We made a statement against the New York Giants a few weeks ago. We feel like we are ready, finally, to get this playoff monkey off our back. I can't promise anything, but when you look at this Atlanta Falcons team, I get a feeling they have a little bit of an edge that says we're sick and tired of people saying we can't win in the playoffs. What that'll translate to, I don't know, but I think it'll be interesting to see.
So, like I said, we'll expect that Atlanta's going to struggle with that brand of defense that Seattle will bring. I said that Atlanta will win at home. That's going to be a tough one for Seattle, but if I were to pick that game, it'd probably be one of those 1 point or pick 'em type games.
Yeah, I agree.
Atlanta favored to win there, in my opinion. Sunday at 3:30, you've got the Houston Texans traveling to Foxborough, taking on New England. What kind of weather do we see for that, meteorologist Weldon?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I didn't get my Al Roker on this morning, but I will tell you this. I'm sure everyone's seen what Dan Shaughnessy wrote in the Boston paper. Arian Foster got a hold of it, put it up, basically said the New England Patriots are the first team in the history of the NFL to get 2 straight bye weeks in the playoffs.
Oh.
Yeah, he went there.
He said, well, I heard that he called the Texans a fraud.
Yeah, he called them a fraud and, said 2 bye weeks. And here's the deal. I've been very critical of the Houston Texans. In fact, I'm close to writing a blog about a fatal mistake made by the Houston Texans, but I would not go that far. And again, no New England Patriot player said that. You never hear this from the Belichick camp. It was Dan Shaughnessy, a writer in Boston, but still. This Houston Texan team is too talented. They have too many pieces to completely flush down the drain. I'm not trying to rattle that hornet's nest down in Houston because they can play, but at the same time, I still don't trust Matt Schaub when it counts. I don't trust Matt Schaub when play action pass isn't working and he has to drop back and throw the football. And I still think New England wins. I just didn't like that degree of disrespect for the Houston Texans.
I do like what that adds to the discussion and to the if you don't come into a playoff game ready to play, you don't have any business being there. So right. Houston, it's not going to add a whole lot to, we couldn't compete, but now we can because of this bulletin board material. But I expected that Houston, coming into the season, would be about where they are, and I didn't expect that New England would find a running game and that they would be able to withstand all the injuries that they had this year. Guys like Gronk and Aaron Hernandez going out. So if Houston's to win this game, like I predicted, it would be one of those things, like I said, where Atlanta's favored by 1 point over Seattle. I would favor New England by 1 point over Houston, be rooting like I've never rooted for Houston to win that game. I can't stand New England, but like you said, if New England is able to win, it sets up a big game next week, presumably against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and if Houston does win that game, I mean, the motivational tactics and incentives are great. But you got embarrassed last time you went up to Foxborough.
Yep.
Something's got to change.
That's another angle to the story.
It's a motivational factor. It also is a huge indicator that you got to change something. I mean, I said it the other day. Wade Phillips is going to play man-to-man coverage again. They just have to be more physical with those Patriots receivers because they got embarrassed.
They did. We'll look at a couple other things NFL related here in just a moment. RG3's torn ACL repaired this morning, and also I don't necessarily want to call him a popular coach, but an NFL assistant fired yesterday. It was a little bit of a surprise. We'll talk about that after the break.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hello, River Valley. This is Doug Duval again at Arkansas's first rack furniture warehouse, where Leon and I are back in business. We have gallery selection at quality warehouse prices here at the Rack Furniture Warehouse, 2609 East Parkway, Russellville.
Set your sights on savings right now at Honda of Russellville. We're offering our best deals of the year on remaining 2012 Honda ATVs, plus special introductory offers on select new 2013 Honda ATVs, all with zero down and easy monthly payments with approved credit. Be sure to check out the all-new Honda Foreman 4x4, now stronger, smarter, and harder working. How about a side-by-side? Well, Honda's got you covered with the Big Red. Honda's Big Red offers a proven Honda engine, automotive-style Honda automatic transmission with no belts to slip or break. Come in for a test ride today at Arkansas's legendary Honda dealer, Honda of Russellville. Live from the River Valley Leader Studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
All right, we've been long-winded today.
Love it.
We've got a short segment on our hands here. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton in the RiverValleyLeader.com studios. Thank you for joining us today on a Wednesday, January the 9th, 2013. Looking at some NFL, we talked about the playoffs and who we expected to win in the divisional round this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. There were a couple coaching moves. We talked on Monday about Chip Kelly blowing our minds and deciding to stay in college with the Oregon Ducks. Well, Rob Ryan, Dallas defensive coordinator, he was fired yesterday by the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones decided to go a different direction. Although Rob Ryan did say he would be hired and have a new job within 5 minutes, that wasn't necessarily the case. He probably won't spend a whole lot of time in the unemployment line, but it was kind of a shocking move there by Jerry Jones to get rid of his defensive coordinator after 2 years.
It's just, I really can't even begin to talk about how many wrong things there are with this situation. It really has nothing to do with Rob Ryan and how much I like him or dislike him. It's just the principle of the matter. First of all, Jerry Jones comes out a couple of weeks ago or a week ago and says there's going to be big changes. Well, he's not getting rid of Tony Romo. He's not going to get rid of Jason Garrett. So he looks around and says, Lord, I got to do something. Defensive coordinator, you're fired.
Do you think he just blindfolded?
He's like, I got to change something. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys statistically weren't great this year. Although I don't know how much better Dallas is going to do than Rob Ryan. I really can't say Rob Ryan was the problem. But still, the biggest issue with the Dallas Cowboys, everybody knows, I'm not unveiling a big secret here, is Jerry Jones and his hands-on approach. When you have a hands-on approach as an owner, you basically emasculate everybody who you've put in power below you. Your head coach. We've always talked about running joke. Cowboy head coaches have no power, and when you don't have that structure within your franchise, it's really hard to cultivate a winning atmosphere. And here Jerry is again. He's out front. Jason Garrett. I don't know if Jason Garrett had any impact in this decision or not. But it just doesn't feel like he does. It still feels like Jerry Jones is the guy. He just has a guy as a puppet as a head coach. And until Dallas changes that, I don't care who they fire, it's not going to happen. So to me, Mark, to bring it back full circle, Rob Ryan fired, probably wouldn't have done it. I really don't think it matters. It just speaks to the whole Cowboy culture and the way it is.
I can't add anything to that. Rob Ryan wasn't the problem. The defense did improve. They went out and got some players. They still need some players. They need some safeties.
Yes,
their safeties
Lord.
are terrible. They've dealt with injuries. DeMarcus Ware had some injuries. You still got guys like Mike Jenkins out there that just aren't very good in the defensive backfield. Rob Ryan wasn't the problem. I don't really care for the guy. I just as soon see somebody else calling the plays defensively, but they did get better. He wasn't the problem. I heard an interesting conversation. Mark Schlereth yesterday talked about how since Jimmy Johnson, nobody in Dallas has had any say in anything.
Right.
Is it a surprise? Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl, had the keys yanked away from him. Is it a surprise that Dallas has won one playoff game in 16 years?
No, and the thing about it is Jerry Jones is fixated on this. Well, I did it my way back in the day. We won not 2 but 3 Super Bowls, and he can't get out of that mode. He can't get out of that mode to where he would hire a football person, somebody to be a GM type, somebody to run the day-to-day football operations. And even if Jerry Jones didn't want to hire a GM, I know people have called for that, and I think it'd be a good move, but even if he did not, it's about the power structure. It's about empowering your head coach to be the leader of that group of men. And Dallas, in several years, they have not had a head coach with that power. If you're a player and you have a problem, you feel as though you can go above the head coach. Coach made me mad. I'm going to go tell Jerry that Coach Garrett made me mad. Okay, well, what kind of power is that for your head coach? Your head coach doesn't have any power. In a situation like that, it needs to be, okay, coach has made me mad. Let me go to the owner. The owner needs to turn around and say, well, He's the head coach. I put him in power. You do what he says. You are a subordinate of him. Don't come crying to me. Don't try to bypass him just because you don't like what he does. I put him in charge. That doesn't happen in Dallas, and that's a problem.
That's a big problem. I just think that for the past 16, 17 years, Jerry Jones has taken an Al Davis-like approach, and you saw what good it did him. I mean, it did him no good whatsoever the last 25 years of his life. If Dallas ever wants to be good, somebody, I don't know if it's Jerry Jones' son, somebody in his family is going to have to say, look, Dad, it ain't working. You're going to have to get some help. Some way, somehow, get somebody who knows the game. Because, you said Jerry Jones did it his own way. I don't know that he did. He made a good decision.
In his mind, he did.
Yeah, he did a good job of hiring somebody with the good football mind in Jimmy Johnson, and he made they made some good draft decisions. But that's 20 some odd years ago that you made good draft decisions to get Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin and some of these guys. Since then, the best draft decisions you've made. Oh, congratulations on getting Dez Bryant. Congratulations on drafting DeMarcus Ware. That's about the only things that they've done worth of crap in the last 10 years. You've got, if you're Jerry Jones, to make some good decisions there in Dallas to bring them back to prominence. I think Rob Ryan being fired was, sort of a pot calling the kettle black sort of thing. With Jerry Jones making a rash decision. I don't know if he didn't just blindfold himself and pick somebody in the office. You're fired.
Yeah, I don't know who he's going to hire either. I mean, what names are out there? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. If you can't get better, then what in the world is he going to coach the defense himself?
He might.
I'm a little bitter as a Dallas Cowboy fan, lifelong fan. The Cowboys can't make the playoffs when they have a chance. Team that beat them out of the playoffs, playoff race there in the NFC East. The Washington Redskins Dallas had a chance to make the playoffs. We're not able to get it done because the Washington Redskins beat them. Their quarterback, Robert Griffin III, messed up knee and all, beats Dallas, goes to the playoffs, loses to Seattle, tears his ACL and his LCL. We were just looking earlier at just the way the knee is set up and the fact that you've got the MCL on the inside, you've got the ACL kind of on the back, the LCL. Robert Griffin III tore his whole knee up. He had it all worked on today by Dr. James Andrews. I thought that was kind of a sad development there. Was he more injured than we were led to believe?
We see events unfold and we see more and more of this story come out. I'm starting to believe so, because one of the first things that tipped me off was it was actually during pregame introductions when the broadcast showed RG3 running out of the tunnel. And they were saying before that, well, he's as healthy as he's been. The Redskins feel really good about how he's progressed since that injury against the Baltimore Ravens, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, he may come out in a sleeve, maybe a little wrap or something just to protect it. He comes out in a 1984-looking offensive lineman knee brace on. I'm saying, what is this? You're supposed to be almost healthy, ready to go. You look like you can barely walk with that big, bulky thing on. That tipped me off right off the bat that there was something up with RG3's knee. And then, of course, the play towards the end of the first quarter where he's running out of bounds in the playoff game against Seattle, and the knee kind of just buckles. And to me, he was done then. I'm sorry, I would have pulled him. And then he comes out and says, well, if Coach had pulled me, I would have been upset. And you know what I would have said? I don't care. I'm the coach of this team. Daniel Snyder should have came down out of his nice, heated, warm box and came down and said, he's out. That's my asset. Clearly something is wrong with that knee. I don't care how tough you try to be. You're a rookie. I've invested in you. You are the future of this team. You are sitting down after that point. That didn't happen. And, of course, his knee buckled after that. The conversation would go back to, well, what Shanahan should have done. Did he put his love for winning ahead of RG3's health and all of that? I'm not sure exactly what happened as far as that's concerned, but I know if that were my asset and after what I saw in the first quarter of him running out of bounds in that throw, he would have been out. Sorry. Done.
That's the way a lot of people thought about the whole RG3 situation. He was too hurt, and you could tell he was kind of
to
just
be
a lame
effective,
duck out there.
yeah.
Exactly. And Kirk Cousins was he was no slouch from what we've seen of him this year. So putting in, if you had to go to Rex Grossman,
yeah, if you had to go to Rex Grossman, and the thing with RG3, and then people have brought this, you got to play when he's hurt, blah blah. That's what great ones do. But I've said this before. Michael Jordan's flu didn't cause him to score 6 points in that game. We've seen Tiger Woods didn't shoot 15 over par on that torn ACL. These athletes put up championship performance in spite of their physical illness and obstacles. Robert Griffin III missed throw after throw, and just he couldn't drive on that back leg, shift the weight from front to back or from back to front. It was evident he was not as effective. So it's not about being tough at that point. It's about hurting the team.
That's right.
No.
That's right. And Robert Griffin III, hats off to you for trying and making the effort and trying to be a warrior out there. Nobody was saying anything when it was 14-0, but Robert Griffin III at the end of the game, he was out there on one leg, and it was hard to watch. So we're going to hit a break when we come back. Arkansas Razorbacks in the Honda of Russellville Hog Talk.
In a white room with black curtains near the station. Black roof country, no gold pavements, tired starlings. Silver.
Hello, River Valley. This is Doug Duval with Arkansas's first Rack Furniture Warehouse, where we have the largest selection of recliners and mattresses in the state of Arkansas. Come visit us at 2609 East Parkway, the Rack Furniture Warehouse.
Set your sights on savings right now at Honda of Russellville. We're offering our best deals of the year on remaining 2012 Honda ATVs, plus special introductory offers on select new 2013 Honda ATVs, all with zero down and easy monthly payments with approved credit. Be sure to check out the all-new Honda Foreman 4x4, now stronger, smarter, and harder working. How about a side-by-side? Well, Honda's got you covered with the Big Red. Honda's Big Red offers a proven Honda engine, automotive-style Honda automatic transmission with no belts to slip or break. Come in for a test ride today at Arkansas's legendary Honda dealer, Honda of Russellville.
Hello, River Valley. This is Doug Duval again at Arkansas's first Rack Furniture Warehouse, where Leon and I are back in business. We have gallery selection at quality warehouse prices here at the Rack Furniture Warehouse, 2609 East Parkway, Russellville.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Live from the River Valley Leader Studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
Welcome back. Final segment of the Sports Blitz for this Wednesday. It's time to talk Hogs. I know you guys look forward to Arkansas Razorback news and the latest. The latest is in recruiting, as signing day is 3 weeks away?
Yeah, February the 6th or 7th.
Yeah, it's in the first week of February. The Arkansas football coaches hard at it, trying to get the best recruits that they can to come to Fayetteville. We found out the other day that Arkansas had picked up a big commitment, Juwan Day from North Little Rock, running back, not necessarily the running back that a lot of people had on their mind, but he's a 2014 commit, going to come play running back for Arkansas, committed on the day he was offered.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a 3-star, right?
I believe he is, but a lot of people have said that he's every bit as good as L.T. Tenpenny.
Yeah, that's what I like. I mean, the thing with Brett Bielema, and I think every coach should do this too, it's not about the stars. It's about, can I look at this guy and do I see a player that can do what I ask him to do in terms of a fit? And sometimes that's a 4 or 5, sometimes that's a 3. I haven't seen Juwan Day play, but from what I've heard, he's somebody that Brett Bielema has identified as this guy can play. And as you alluded to, Mark, Maybe he's bringing somebody. Maybe he's pushing somebody, ahead of me. Go ahead and keep the seat warm up there and running back. Then I'll be up there and join you.
The reason that we say that is because a couple days ago we saw Arkansas coaches. It seemed like every one of them were tweeting the same thing. Oh, big day for Arkansas. Huge news for the Hogs. Woo Pig Suey, this and that. And, they tweet things like Woo Pig Suey, go Hogs all the time.
Right.
But they don't necessarily bring out, big news, good news, things like that. It seems to me like, and this is just my prediction, that Arkansas has a big silent commitment, that somebody that they're going on signing day or sometime before is going to flip or sign with Arkansas that nobody really saw coming. My prediction, Alti Tenpenny is going to be a Razorback. Juwan, it just makes too much sense. On the day that this is tweeted, Juwan Day is committed to Arkansas, the North Little Rock running back. Well, he could just make one phone call to his buddy and say, yeah, the Hogs offered me. I'm going to go play. Let's go play together. It just makes too much sense to me that a guy like Alti Tenpenny, and also heard rumors, I don't even know if it's rumors, it was tweeted, that Joel Thomas, the Arkansas running backs coach, was at the U.S. Army All-American game with Alti Tenpenny, seen talking to him there on the sidelines. So that's just my prediction. It could be Alti Tenpenny and more people that come on and decide to come play for Arkansas. Just seeing some of the tweets that some of these recruiting guys are putting out, it looks like Arkansas is getting favorable results from their recruiting efforts. Some of these guys like Randy Shannon and Joel Thomas and Brett Bielema out on the recruiting trail having some success.
And, we look at this Arkansas class, and we talked about the other day, only 13 commits about a month outside of signing day. Really, really concerning. I mean, you want to be wrapping things up, bringing a few big-time players on in terms of recruiting when you get this close. But it's really go big or go home. Arkansas, we talked about around 25 4- and 5-star players that they are hot on. Now, obviously, they're not going to land all of them. But if Arkansas can cast that net and bring in a few of them, it'll really make this class worth it. So I can understand if a fan, Mark, if you're at home, you're seeing 13. We got to get something going here. We're going to end up with some scholarships. Have to give them to the neighbor's dog over there if we don't get some kids signed. I think Arkansas is going to do it. I think this staff, this high-dollar staff with all the accolades and all the credentials they have, I think they're going to pull it off. And by pull it off, I mean bring some really good football players to Arkansas. I just believe it's going to happen. If you read the tweets and you see what the recruiting guys are tweeting, they're mentioning Arkansas and this guy and that guy, tight end, offensive line from here. A guy who was looking at USC and Cal is looking at Arkansas. A guy looking at Oklahoma and Texas is coming to visit. It's really starting to heat up, Mark, and I think Arkansas is going to do some damage.
Speaking of Arkansas doing some damage, I expect that you're right. And on recruiting signing day, we're going to see Arkansas do pretty well there on the football side, but we got to switch gears. We don't have but a couple minutes left. Let's look at SEC basketball. The Hogs open their slate tonight at 8 o'clock against Texas A&M. I'll give you one last chance. Give me a number of wins for the Hogs, and let's preview tonight's game. A&M 10-3. They've got the home floor advantage at the Reed Arena there against Arkansas. I hope Arkansas is able to get the win. It's going to be on ESPNU or watch ESPN. It's going to be tough, though, because the Hogs always just struggle on the road. You'll know something more, one way or the other, about these Hogs tonight, whether they can compete for an SEC championship game. I've got them going 10-8 in the SEC. After what I've seen from some of these SEC teams so far, that might be a little low.
Yeah, we talked to Drew, and I brought up this point with him. I feel like, as Arkansas fans, we've been down this road before where we like our team entering conference play, and then we look at the conference and we see it's not very good. We merge the two thoughts together, and we think that Arkansas should be a top 3 SEC team. But Drew feels differently, and I tend to feel a little bit differently this year as well in terms of how it'll be different. Now, I'm still going to be a little bit pessimistic, and I'm not going to say that Arkansas is going to win, 14 or 15, because when you look at how bad some of these SEC teams are, you would think they could win that many. I'm in your neighborhood, and I may just go with you at 10-8. I think 10-8, it's enough a wiggle room to where if Arkansas has some lapses against bad teams and actually lose, this league is still bad enough to where they can get to 10-8. I'm with you. I think Arkansas at 10-8, so it's a good number.
You think the Hogs will win tonight?
I think so. They better.
I like it.
They have to. They better.
I like it. Well, I'll pick the Hogs to win too. I'll just go ahead and do it. I'll pick the Hogs to win tonight. I'll have a little faith in the Mike Anderson system. I'll have a little faith in B.J. Young and Marshawn Powell and the guys to get a win tonight on the road. Don't disappoint me, or I may never, ever pick you to win another game on the road again.
Yeah, they lost. I was just looking at some numbers. They lost by 10 to Oklahoma. A&M did. Of course, Arkansas won, and a close one. So if you're doing a little cross comparison, there's a one to look at.
We were at that game, the Oklahoma game. It was a fun game for the Hogs. All right. You're not here in the River Valley Leaders studio, so you can't hear the siren going on, the Wednesday noon siren. But that's all the time we have for today. We will be back 11 to noon on Friday. We'll break down the playoff games in football. We'll look at some high school basketball action. Hopefully we're looking at some more Arkansas Razorback good news, basketball, football, looking at an opening SEC game win and some possible recruiting news, anything that we can come up with in local news, and we'd love to hear from you. Email mark@rivervalleyleader.com or follow me on Twitter @RVL_Mark, @Weldon Braxton.
Right, at Weldon Braxton.
And get involved with the Sports Blitz. Make this your show. We'll be back on Wednesday. For Maddie, our producer, and Weldon, I'm Mark. So long.